Okay, well, thank you very much. And I'm, very grateful to our colleagues from the Chinese Community Wellbeing Society from Bristol to come and talk to us today about their presentation that took place at the Rose Green Centre in Bristol on the 17th of April. And what I've asked our colleagues to do is to go through the presentation that they made at the workshop and to perhaps illustrate some of the points and to maybe have a discussion afterwards about the role of the arts. So before we kick off, can I just ask you to very briefly introduce yourselves? So maybe if we start with Emily, just a couple of sentences. Thank you very much.
Yes, so my name's Emily Choi, and I am a dementia coordinator at the Chinese Community Wellbeing Society.
And Ming? Oh, I think you need to turn your microphone on.
Sorry, my name is Ming, and I'm the Care Service Manager from Chinese Community Wellbeing Society.
Thank you very much. And
My
Kelly?
name is Kelly, and nice to meet you again, Andrew. And I'm working as a kind of dementia project coordinator currently, and supporting the people living with dementia really and their family members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we move to just running through the presentation that you gave. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Today we're going to talk again about supporting the Chinese community in accessing care home services. Initially, probably we can look into the barriers of the Chinese community. A literature review can help us to understand the situation at this moment in the UK. 3% of people with dementia are from BAME communities, around 25,000 people. And this number is expected to double by 2026, with increase expected in South Asian communities as well. That's why we could think about the way that how many people and how many families from BAME communities going to be suffering from this kind of barriers, not only the Chinese community. First one we would like to talk about would be the awareness and the diagnosed difficulties. Briefly speaking, that be, most of the people from different, cultures, they couldn't, especially Chinese community, they couldn't be very aware of dementia or sort of, other kind of disease. So they need more information dedicatedly. And also the diagnosis is a long term, as far as we understand, is up to 12 months. So there's lots of difficulties within that kind of, sort of aspect. Ming, do you want to jump in for the cultural barrier and language barriers?
Yeah, I think for most of Chinese people, they hesitate to move in care home. One of the big problem is the cultural barrier, because for Chinese community, family is very important. We think that it's our responsibility to take care of family member whenever they need help. So in our culture, we don't have the term carer, as we will just take care of our children, our parents, our siblings, which is what we will do. So people live together in the same house. Even the children grow up and have their own family, like 3 generations in the same household is very common in Chinese society. We don't want to send our parents to care home, and also the parents would like to stay with the family. That is different to the culture in the UK, I believe. And also language barrier. I believe most of the older generation came to the UK maybe 30, 40 years ago. They were not very well educated. And because of they work very hard to earn their living, and as a result, they can't speak English very well, even they have been living in the UK for decades. So the main concern is if they move to care home, they wouldn't be able to communicate with the staff or even with the residents, that you can imagine how isolated they will be. So with this issue, I think that is another barrier for the Chinese community to consider to move in care home as well. And Kelly can talk about why this is the care home system. They don't have any knowledge about this. Thank you, Kelly.
No worries. I'm going to talk about the lack of the knowledge about the care home system and worries about inequality services. The reason I put the two, kind of barriers together, because, I want to literally make everybody understand that why we separate them, why we're not putting them as a one item. The reason is, because, in Chinese community, we understand we got old migrants. They're here probably 10, 20, 30, 40 years, something like that. And we got new migrants recently, to be honest, in this couple of years. And then they just arrived probably 1 month until probably almost a year, something like that. So for the old migrants, their barrier is more likely lack of the knowledge about the care home systems because they got language barrier. So they don't know how to access the services. They don't entirely understand the system in the care home. Rather than trying the wrong thing, they would rather not doing anything, just ignore that kind of needs, and they don't want to go to any kind of a system. They don't want to learn that kind of system unless any kind of support services can be there to help them. On the other hand, the worries about inequality services more likely lean to that, new migrants, especially we're talking about the BNO, British kind of, national overseas visa holders from Hong Kong. They immigrated recently, and they are capable with language. They are okay with English, but they're worried about inequality services because there's lots of experiences in Hong Kong. They understand if you're not paying quite a lot of money, if you're not sending your family members to a very luxury kind of, care home, very good reputation care home, they could be mistreated. Because this kind of scary kind of things, and to stop them using the services in UK. So that's why we're trying to illustrate that kind of things into different, issues in Chinese community. I would like to give you a little bit insight of, national statistics as well. Roughly about 500 Hong Kong BNO visa holders have arrived in UK up to the end of March 2023. But it's still increasing. I mean, it's still ongoing. They're still coming to the UK. So this kind of barrier going to be increased dramatically in the next several years or maybe decade. So let's go to the other page that we're going to say about possible solutions to break down the barriers. I think my colleague Ming probably would like to, mention a bit more about to raise awareness and knowledge.
Thank you, Kelly. We can provide cultural awareness training to service providers who are supporting people from different backgrounds and cultures to enhance they have the knowledge and skills to support different needs. For example, to understand the different cultural norms, customs, values, and beliefs, why Chinese come to the UK, how they settle, what challenges we face. With understanding of all this, the service provider will be able to support them fully. And also, to build up a trust relationship is very important as well. During COVID and lockdown, relationship between people were affected. We didn't get to contact or to see people face to face. We were isolated and not be able to get support we need. That has a significant impact to many of us until now. How we can connect with community again, we need to communicate and have interactive discussion, to learn and to listen. Perhaps that will build up a trust relationship between people and all the organization and community again. So I'll pass to Kelly to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. I do agree with what Ming said, because, building up a trusted relationship is very important, especially in Chinese community. The reason is, Chinese people wouldn't believe kind of, information leaflet and the kind of, TV shows, and, they only believe in word of mouth. If their friends believe in that and they believe in that. So in the whole community, they trust each other. They know them, more than 5 years, 10 years, and they know this kind of relationship takes time. So that's why our organization has, strived to, build up a very trusted kind of relationship within our community and with our community. Also, we need to respect and understand the cultural background. The reason is, if you couldn't make people understand, you are on their side, they wouldn't just listen to you. They wouldn't trust what kind of services you are doing because, they don't think you are thinking about their needs, really. And also, catch up with the dynamic trend of actual needs from old and new migrants. It would be very important because if we're not following up with the trend, we don't know what is the actual needs from our community. We wouldn't be able to targeting the services and do the proper planning. So in that case, the first thing we need to do is, build up the relationship, raise their awareness and knowledge, and respect them as they are. And also, following up their needs, they can be changed, because, the old migrant and new migrants, their needs could be changed. Because, during decade, they are looking for different services. They're looking for different aspects. And also linking up with the local community organizations is really handy way to the service providers, no matter is the primary health sector, healthcare sector, or the secondary, because we have spent so long time to build up that control relationship and trust, and then we know how to access our community, how to let them understand the services, what is the benefit, how you can access that. So it is really important. Do you want to go for the partnership with others, Ming?
Yep. So I think organization can work together. Like our organization, I support one care home. They have a group of Chinese residents living in the care home. So I visit them bi-weekly to support them. Like if they receive a letter, they understand maybe it's from the GP, maybe it's from the council. They wouldn't understand the letter, why they got it. So I will explain the letter to them. That means they know what they need to follow up with the maybe council, to follow up with the GP. That is kind of the support that they will need if someone they can explain further about like the letter. But I think the care home staff, they might not be able to do that. So they will need to learn to work with other organizations such as us to provide enough support for their residents. And also not just to read letter, of course, to communicate between the care home and also the resident is very, very important. Like I help them to attend the resident meeting to raise up their voice and to let the care home know their concern. That is the communication they need between the setting, also the residents as well. Thank you. And I pass to Emily to talk about the art.
Yeah, so in terms of arts and the Chinese community, at our organization, we have delivered over the past few years a range of different sessions all to do with arts and intervention activities. So on the slide here, you can see just some of the things we've learned whilst delivering these sessions. So the first thing is that, of course, arts activities, they often can help older people, especially those who may be isolated, to help keep them engaged. It can also help people connect and bond. And we also found that through doing lots of different sessions where usually it was both the person being cared for and the carer taking part in the sessions, we found that attending these sessions really helped to improve the relationship actually between them both, as well as improvement in well-being as well. Apart from helping older people stay connected, arts can also help those taking part feel a sense of accomplishment as well. We have found for some that arts also can provide them with an opportunity to try an activity that they had never tried before. A lot of them may not have been able to access or do these things when they're younger. So being able to give them that opportunity now can be really, really positive for them. The last point as well, there is how culturally sensitive design and delivery of art activities can boost engagement and impact. So we've delivered a whole different range of activities and arts activities to the people. And we did find that there was a difference in terms of, for example, sometimes we delivered just a general dance session, and then we delivered a session on like Qigong with a Cantonese instructor. And then we did find that obviously when it was maybe an activity that's more culturally sensitive to them, like Qigong or Tai Chi. And then when it was delivered by someone who could speak their own language, obviously there's more participation, and also the engagement with the activity really did increase. I do think, though, that in instances where language support is limited or unavailable, which I think probably can often maybe be the case, maybe in care homes, because probably there can't always be Chinese staff on hand. Sometimes there's, lack of resources. I do think in those instances that arts, just general arts, can provide an opportunity to, break down some of those cultural barriers. A lot of arts activities, they don't necessarily require you to understand language to participate, like things like painting, exercise, anyone can join in. And then all of these arts still have the benefits, for example, of like I said, fostering connection, or just to help stimulate people's minds, which is really important when, especially in a care home, when sometimes otherwise they might just be sat there for long periods of time. So that is really important. So as well, I think, like I said, with arts helping to perhaps overcome some of the cultural barriers, and I think arts can also help to, I think, like we said previously on the other slides, one of the solutions is to try to build trusted relationships. I do think arts can help with that as well, over a longer period of time. If it's the same person, continue to help, or if it's like a regular group, that can really help, I think, build up more connections. Arts, though, can be slightly limited. Like I said, although it does, like I said, help with cultural barriers, building trusted relationships, there are still things that exist, like stigma, just in general, of care homes, and things like that, which it can't quite, I don't think, can overcome that. I also think nothing really can quite replace the kind of human connection that people can face in terms of being able to speak to someone in your own language. I think sometimes, I know, like Ming said, connecting with community organizations, even sometimes just getting a volunteer, or sometimes in our instances, a care worker to visit someone, just chat to them a time a week, that really helps. But if you can't find that, then I do think arts, they can provide a really good alternative in those instances.
Yeah, I
So,
hope you don't mind I add a little
yes,
bit.
Kelly, please do come in.
Emily and I, we were working together closely that, to deliver that kind of intervention activities for our dementia support hub. And then we realized that, rather than stick to the sole activities and continuously, we would like to try various different, activities, because it seems like the outcome and the impact to the community is much better than the sole activity. So that's the point that I would like to pop out and saying that, it might be for Chinese community, people would like to join different, intervention activities to stimulate their brain health like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That was really interesting. Yeah. And I like your sort of thinking through about how the arts might support this sort of building of connections between groups. Do you think it might be possible for the arts to, well, if you've got a group of people who are perhaps outside your community, and actually use the arts to allow them to understand to a greater degree? So, for example, in a care home, you might have carers who don't have the language, who might be very interested in the culture, and there may be an arts activity that enables them to understand the needs of perhaps Chinese people within the care home environment better. Would that help, do you think, or are you not sure about that? It's just a thought.
Oh, I think that could definitely help, like you said. If it's just like understanding, like you said, so like you said, external care workers, like you said, who might not be able to communicate. I think any activity, if it would be get them participating with the residents themselves, I think any activities where you're doing something together helps build a sense of connection between two people. But I also think as well, if you think care work is in a sense of doing an arts activity to help them better understand. I think also that could be a good way of maybe alternative learning in a sense, because sometimes just sitting down and hearing a lot of information, okay, you can take it in, but sometimes doing something a bit more practical as well, that could be quite useful, a different way of approaching things actually.
Yes, I think something like that might help.
Yeah. Absolutely. Andrew, I would like to say I quite agree with Emily, and also because, personally, I'm just holding a kind of, community village kind of WhatsApp group, and then most of them are senior people, although they're not living in the, care home, but they're, elderlies, and they're pretty much more likely would like to engage with the origami, kind of cooking sessions, rather than talking to each other like the people standing in the pub and, have a drink together. So their hobby has changed to kind of art things, rather than, they would like stimulate their brain rather than only the talking conversation. I can see that kind of thing. So thinking about your question, we expand a bit to the people, in, a bit senior age, and then their needs. It could be art can really helpful, even they're outside in the village, in the community, or they're in the care home. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Good. So I think there is a certain amount of potential that perhaps we've not yet tapped into, maybe for resource reasons. Do you find there's enough resource to do this work, or is it really difficult to get money to do it?
We think funding is really a big issue, but we really want to do, because we know there's needs there, and especially no matter it's English people or the Chinese community. That's why we're talking about the BAME communities. We would like to work together closely. We want to share our kind of traditional arts, like origami, like, the different cookery sessions. We want to learn from other community rather than stick into the Seoul community. We think it's just more empower the community members with their, mental and physical health, overall well-being.
I think that's a very good point. It's a very good point. I was working with a local care home in Newcastle, and the residents there were creating artworks, but they were creating artworks and the content was really quite unusual. It was to do with the respondents, the residents' background and history, which was quite different to the carers. So they were teaching the carers about their own world and where they came from.
Yeah, absolutely. And my neighbor, really similar to you, she really loves cycling. And then I asked her, what is the fun of cycling? It's really hard because, you're cycling to Scotland and then, spent so many weeks. And then why are you doing this? And she said to me, I'm learning about England, Scotland, Wales. I'm learning about that, through cycling. So that's why it's a kind of thing, empower them with the ability physically and mentally. That's a really good thing. But art and, origami, or kind of singing and, Tai Chi is all the same. Just make people being together, socialize, and understand what their fun will be.
Of course, and perhaps the wider community who aren't as aware of perhaps the Chinese culture also have a lot to learn. And that again helps to break down barriers, doesn't it? So
yeah, absolutely. Melt into this main society. You don't understand English, but you know how to fold that paper then together.
yes, absolutely.
That's
excuse
easier.
me, I've been plunged into darkness.
No worries.
Here we go. Periodically it does that. Sorry about that. No, that was really interesting. And I think art has a lot of potential that we're not really getting at yet. And that's certainly one of the things that this network is hoping to achieve, is to try and explore, the potential and try really to encourage and to facilitate people with this sort of work. Because I certainly feel that there is a lot further to go. And the idea of relationality and the relationships between people seemed absolutely central. And some of the consequences of perhaps of not having the relationships in the way that one would like are perhaps meaning that people get more isolated, different cultural groups get more isolated, and it means that it's more difficult to engage with services and more difficult for perhaps older people to have the level of well-being that they deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, just one more, sorry, time is consuming, but just one more example. Because, we often think elderly people got the carer at home, they got 2 person, they're not isolated. But personally, I'm not thinking in this way because they are very isolated. They never meet up with new people. They talk to each other. They argue each other. Their relationship in between is struggling every day. So how they can, refresh their, everyday's life, they need to join kind of, sessions, activities like that. So it could be very useful to them as well. So it's not because of the quantity of the people, it's because of the environment they are in.
Yeah, it's important to think about it in those sort of terms. Yeah, this relationality on a larger scale is something that I'm really, I think you can see it on the big scale, you can see it on the smaller scale. And I think in a way, as I think I might have mentioned in Bristol, I think your presentation is almost like a call to arms to the arts facilitators and arts organizations. What can they do differently to perhaps what they've done before in order to make this work in a way that we would all like? Because it's heartbreaking to hear that people are isolated and perhaps these things are not fully understood. So there is an awful long way to go.
Absolutely.
Okay, so unless anybody else wants to say anything, does everybody else are there any other comments? No, in that case, I'd just like to thank you very much for agreeing to be interviewed. And I think it was fascinating hearing what you have to say. Thank you very much. I'll stop the recording here.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.